Welcome, fellow synthesizer sickos. I'm Vulture Culture, and tonight we're checking out Acustica Audio's brand new Thing, or Thing-8. There's also a Thing-5 version, which is more simplified and stripped down if you don't want something quite as complicated. Super excited to check this out. This is almost a sponsored stream, but we couldn't get it together in time, so this is actually just the demo version. They have a very generous 4-week demo, which has no limitations. There's no reason for me to have waited to actually do this stream. I was like, I'll just use the demo version. So super cool, worth checking out. Links in the description. I don't get any money for doing this video or from the link in the description. And the other thing is the plugin is on sale right now. They extended Black Friday by a couple of weeks. So you can get it 44% off, and doing the exchange rate conversion and everything, I think that's about $125. I could be wrong. So definitely check it and see what you've got. I'm going to be trying to get a discount code from them or something like that just for this video in the future, but we'll see. It'll be in the description. Click that link, whatever that is. They'll probably give you what you need. But yeah, this is a very cool plugin, and I think what's interesting about it is obviously it takes inspiration from the most, legendary synthesizer of all time, but it's also got a very clean modern sound. So it's going to be fun to check it out. That intro was all Thing-8. All of the layers except for the drums, of course. And then what we're going to do is we'll check out some presets, which is always a fun thing to do. And then that way you guys can hear what the thing sounds like. Then we'll do some sound design so we can actually see what's up. So I've got the initialized preset here. First thing right away you'll notice is it is bright. This is a bright synthesizer. And I've never had my hands on a real Jupiter 8, but what I will say is this sounds bright to me. One thing though, you'll notice is we do have some really good voltage controlled oscillator sound to it, where instead of the oscillators having that kind of boring thing, when you play a chord, you can hear a little bit of movement in there. We have an age knob up here. I don't know if this works if the super stereo is not on. I think it does. Let's see how far it can take stuff out. I love how the graphic user interface gets dustier as you crank that up. Yeah, so you could take it into truly gnarly territory. To my ears, I would say that that's probably like broken at 100%. Like, this isn't good. But I like that they let you take it that far. Probably an age of 50 is closer. Yeah, really interesting. The filter, I know I said we check out the presets. We'll do that in a second. It sounds pretty beefy, resonance all the way up. I don't know if that's fully self-oscillating the way you can go on a real, can't say the name of the synthesizer because this is not an officially endorsed product. And even though this isn't a sponsored stream, I figured I might as well play by the rules, right? So let's check out some of these presets. And I think the presets really get across what's special about this synth, because, on first blush, you might think, okay, what do we need another Jupiter 8 for? But let's actually check some presets out. So immediately to my ear, the incredible cleanness of the synth is evident. It's got this pretty crazy sound to it, like hyper real sort of sound. New Andromeda. long reverb and delay there. I think immediately you sort of get a sense of what's going on here. This isn't exactly trying to go for that vintage sound. It's going for like this really clear, like super clear virtual analog thing. Yeah, and that's actually why I decided to go. Let me go ahead and see if I can turn my other one off here. So notice the little latency or PC clicking there. Analog and Beyond, yeah, it does have that like trance sort of sound to it, doesn't it? Which is why I went for the intro track, which, by the way, if anybody knows what the intro track is, shout it out in the... Sounds gorgeous, right? Little Big Horn. So yeah, just stunning clarity on these presets. Yes, it does. We're actually hearing sort of this sequencer mode, and then it's definitely got an arpeggiator. You can see that right here in this section here, Jim. Yeah, I don't know if it sounds like one. I thought about busting out my vintage JX3P behind me, because for those of you guys who don't know, the Roland JX3P has the same IR3109 filter chip as a Jupiter 8. Oh, I shouldn't have said it. Fuck. This video is invalid now. As the synthesizer that this synth might remind you of. And so I thought maybe we could shoot it out, but I've done a lot of comparisons between the hardware and the software. And in this case, I didn't feel that what this plugin's trying to do is necessarily, it's not necessarily trying to convince me that it's the most vintage sounding plugin, right? Really great sort of character to it though, doesn't it have pull and pad? Yeah, for the price, I understand the argument, Billy Bart, that you could potentially really kind of just save up for like a boutique something or another. This preset I checked out before the stream. It's very beautiful. You know, it's just got that almost string machine-y type thing, but again, very hyper-realistic. I should say hyper-realistic, just hyper-real, like above what you would think is possible. Really great for those sorts of sounds, those like analog string machines. This one, of course, the intro. I actually modified this preset. The Bloody Cave. You know, some of that cross-mod stuff. One thing that I've noticed is that you do get a lot of clicky stuff And we can't get rid of that necessarily with the envelope, which you could do on even old VSTs. Like this would happen on REFX Nexus, which is probably 20 fucking years old now. You hear how we get some of those clicks in there? I wouldn't mind if those were cleaned up. It could have something to do with my computer. I'm not saying it's 100% the plugin's fault, but just off the cuff, it sort of feels like it could be something worked on. Syntabla. Almost that Knight Rider theme song sound, Xmod Whirly. Yeah, Synthonic. That's all I said was the Jupiter 8 has the same filter as the JX3P. Carmelon. See, to me, this seems above the capacity for what a real Jupiter, for what a real vintage synth from this era could probably do. Like, you've got the saturator, tone, chorus, delay, reverb, and EQ over here. So I think if I like just turn these off. Oh, the saturator is off, chorus, and the reverb off. Let's hear how it sounds without the effects. We also have this interesting sub-oscillator here. So what this does is cool because we have the VCO1, VCO2, just like on maybe a certain synthesizer from 1981. But then we also have a sub-oscillator. So if I turn that off, you'll hear that's with it off, and then on. I'm not really hearing much of a difference. Maybe it has to do with this high-pass filter. Certainly on some presets I've noticed it. So when we're doing some sound design, we'll check that out. How's it going, Hansvold? What's up, my friend? Love these. They're pretty useless, terrible presets, but they do have charm, right? Not this preset, but any preset that's this like analog voice thing. Very cheesy. Yeah, Parbs, I'm incapable of actually doing anything worthwhile when it comes to these sounds. So now we've got a lot of categories here, guys. So if you want to help me out by picking some stuff, there's so much. I mean, let's try FM brass. That sounds interesting to me. Ooh, that's a very type of sound you might have heard in 1981, right? Really fun sort of brass sound. Let's see. Dark brass, opposite of that. Kind of more of a trombone-y thing. It's fine. Fifth brassy pad. I love a brassy pad. Really bringing in that beautiful resonance. One of the things, and I've said this in recent streams, so I apologize, but I know not everybody listens every week. That is a thing, by the way. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Vulture Culture. You're part of my family now. Like the video and subscribe because we do a live stream on this channel involving synthesizers every Wednesday night. So you're welcome to be a part of that. Anyways, when it comes to digital filters, here's what I've got to say about them. There's always going to be that debate between analog and digital. And there are some really gorgeous analog filters out there. I have a lot of them behind me. And then there are some analog filters that don't sound that good, right? They just weren't implemented well, or they weren't the best design in the first place. But it is true that most of the vintage analog filters sound pretty incredible. And then you move into modern synths, and depending on, the brand and what they're going for, you get varying mileage, but in general, the analog filter is going to sound really good. Digital filters have this sort of negative reputation, and of course, anything that's in the box is going to be a digital filter inherently. But the thing about this synthesizer or any digital filter, whether it be a hardware synth or a software synth, my criterion has shifted a bit to being like, does the filter sound good? Because the problem with digital filters, the problem in parentheses, is they can often sound kind of ice picky and kind of dead and lifeless and plasticky, but they don't have to. There are plenty of digital synths that have really great sounding filters too, like the Roland D50, one of my favorite filters of all time. So with that in mind, I want you guys not just to think about this filter, how much it might sound like the original, but also just like, does it sound good? And I think that's where this synthesizer really shines, because there's a really musical quality. And as we even crank the resonance further, it's just got this character. And that's resonance 100. Now, to my ears, the resonance should probably be able to go further. I don't know if this is like a boost here. I don't know what this knob does, so that could be doing something important. I didn't see it in the manual. I did read the manual, actually. Edwin asks, can the keyboard be hidden to save on-screen space? Let's go look in the options and see. We've got menu scaling, browser, and about. I don't see anything that looks quite like you can. I could be wrong. I'm often wrong about a lot, but I don't see any way to do that. Jim, that's correct. Nick Rhodes used the Jupiter 8 for the whole Rio album. He also used the Roland SH2 behind me. Where the hell is it? Where's my arm? There's my arm. That's an SH2. He used that on, I think for the song Rio, not the arpeggiator, but the lead for that. Todd says, I played with it for about a week. I think it's great. The only issue is it's very CPU intensive. Yeah, it is. And I actually had to bounce a couple of tracks, which I almost never have to do when I do these intros. I actually bounce the stuff because when you have this thing active, it's hogging. But you can hear it. It sounds really clean, and that's different than you get from a lot of these vintagey plugins. Let's see. Synthmates, I don't own a D50, but I've never heard one sound bad. Yeah, that's the thing. There's some magic left in that old digital circuitry. Parb says, digital filtering required expensive dedicated chips in the vintage digital era. Some of them had great algorithms which added character to design constraints, like the D50 and the SY77. Absolutely. DX7, DX100 had really low quality DACs that could be overdriven. And so presets on that sound awesome. And it's one of those interesting things, because I'd like to say, nowadays, most modern synthesizers, aliasing and stuff like that is not an issue with the filter. But for you guys who've been watching this channel recently, you'll know I did a couple of videos on a synth that just came out, digital synth that just came out. Really cool synth, but it aliases worse than a virus back in the day, which just to me is like mind-boggling. Like, it's 2024. We shouldn't have to deal with this anymore. But we're not going to be hearing that out of Thing-8, that's for sure. Super cool. Does anybody want any of the other categories? I really don't know. Like, leads always sort of elude me in a way, because it's hard to know what is a good lead. So let's check out a couple of these. I mean, that seems pretty good. Yeah, as a sound designer, this one's tough. Wind solo. Oh, I love that. That's actually kind of got that Rio sort of sound. Really nice portamento there. Bass. Let's just go through a couple of these. I think we already heard that one. Ooh. Really nice throaty sort of thing. Don't need that much resonance. Yes, and I thought about comparing this Blade Runner to, the Arturia version or the Roland version, but again, I kind of feel like Thing-8's trying to do its own thing. No pun intended, JP303. Wow, that's actually very close. I'm surprised. For what it's trying to do there. Whoa, the subs. So that's just a quick little check that out. Let's see, is there anything we want to check out? Lush 7. So I want to see if this is like an auto chord type thing. It's doing something. John. Let's see what else we got here. Very good. Let's see. Modern pad. It's not quite a pad to me. Neither is that. That's almost like a lead. That's okay. It's probably not, I'm sure they hired people. Remember CS. Let's see, is this a Yamaha CS sound? I got one of those behind me. Whoa. Little CPU spike there. I do think it wouldn't have been bad to have had a polyphony control. And we could always, I guess, turn the quality down to eco. Wouldn't have been a bad thing to be able to control that, because when it comes to plugins, a big part of them is just how many voices it has to do, because it has to duplicate the entire synth chain per voice, and it has to be ready to fire at any second. That's a big part of what increases DSP load, which is why something like a modern digital synth might only have 8 voices of polyphony, because if there's a heavy DSP load per voice, it could still be a problem. Trance Italy Express. I think I checked this one out earlier. I really like this one. Really good pluck. Let's go ahead and turn down to eco. The clicky thing, Parbs, I'd be happy to be wrong, right? To have something I'm doing wrong on my end, but even in eco mode, and this is like a fucking beefy computer, it seems interesting that that's there. And a lot of the times you can get rid of that by increasing the attack. You'll notice that the attack of the synth sound is modified, but you still get that little click at the beginning, which at a plugin of this price point is unacceptable if it's not my problem, in my opinion. Like, to me, comparing this with some other plugins, I understand that this is like kind of like a next gen plugin, but Right now, there's not that much happening on my computer. Of course, I'm live streaming, and this takes up a little bit of CPU too, but not enough that I would think, that I can't have one instance heated up, right? I don't know. And one other little caveat there I wanted to say is that I am using the demo version. And I saw at least one post online where they were saying, hey, there are slight differences between what was going on with the demo and stuff. So if you're using a demo, that might be the problem right there. Again, they wanted to actually send the plugin over to me, but we couldn't make it work in the time frame, and I decided to do this anyways. Astral Shimmering. I don't know. Has anybody had any, let's see if Eco gets rid of any of those clicks. It does. So I wonder if it's just my computer, even being beefy, is just not enough for this. Mighty Pinto, welcome, my friend. I was actually listening to your playthrough of Scream Thy Name Betrayer today while I was working on some chores around the house. Just super grateful that you did that. I, of course, am working on the upcoming Choose Your Own Adventure. That's my art. Some people play in bands. My art is Choose Your Own Adventures. So really excited to have you here and your constant support. Going through some more, is there anything else anybody's interested in? I mean, let's check out an 808, right? It's a pretty good 808, right? I guess we'll just try a couple more. It's not a drum. That's cool. That's a very good hand clap. That's a pretty good. Definitely kind of has that sound. Interesting combination here. Okay, we're going to skip right past the organs. And let's go with MK Piano. I wish the quality settings weren't stored per preset, although I could see why. Let's see. Maybe some pads, I think I saw someone say. Synthsonic. So let's see. Lush. Ice strings probably won't be lush. Let's see. Moondust. The science of writing preset names, I think, is a fascinating one, isn't it? Not to my taste. Pull and pad we already checked out. There we go. What's up, Ed from Earth, my man? Just check out a few more of these. Radioactive Ambient. Escape from Milan. It's okay. Deep Saw Sweep. Oh, that sounds kind of cool. Little ice picky on the filter there, though. Square pad. Almost tempted to just make my own pad at this point. This is a very good preset, very unique, you know, like what I look for out of a preset are two things. One is just like a raw demonstration of what a synthesizer can do. So if it sounds good, just a raw oscillators and filter, I want to be able to hear it in some of the presets. And then something like this, which is both a display of like, okay, this thing can do more than just your typical virtual analog stuff, but also a sound. This would be part two. A newish sound. I mean, it's pretty hard to come up with something brand new nowadays, but something that's like, oh, I could drop that in a track and it's going to be a very different flavor than anything else I'm going to have, right? And to me, this is a really good preset for this, where it's like... something. It's filling a certain sort of space that isn't, you know, your just typical thing. I will say, so the Acustica favorites are all incredible. Let's go check out bells real quick. I don't know. Not really there. Not really a bell. Yeah, I don't think the presets are always the best example of what this thing can do. There we go. At least we got a fucking one sound. Let's turn a hold on and arpeggio on and just, you know, take drugs. Wow. I don't know what I was expecting, but that's actually quite crazy. Aquatic Borealis, how's it going, my friend? Tell me about the Polybrute 12. Every time you're here, I want to know what you think, especially because I'm going into shooting my best synths of 2025 video this month. And I think the question on pretty much everybody's mind is the Polybrute 12 the ultimate synthesizer? So I'd put that up to you. Is it everything you could want out of an analog synth? It seems like it should be, but until you have it underneath your fingertips, it's hard to know. So I'd be curious to know what you think there. I swear to God, Matt, that'll happen at some point. It's rough. Time is a fucking motherfucker. Let's pull up an init patch and let's just make some sounds now, because I don't think the presets are the best, unfortunately, on this. So we've got the very bright sawtooth. I don't know if anybody's had a Jupiter 8. Seems bright to me. We have, what else do we have here? We have a triangle wave. We have pulse width, mod, and square wave, which seems to not be affected by the pulse width here. And then we got pulse width mod here. One interesting thing about these knobs is they're smooth, even if the function isn't, which I kind of wish it would just jump there instead of being smooth, right? Minor gripe. We could set the LFO to control the pulse width modulation. We can go almost through 0. Can we go through 0? No, very close though. Or we can use envelope 1. In this case, fuck it, I want to use envelope 1. Aquatic says, I don't know, man. Polybrute 12 is the best hands-on synth I've played, but it doesn't scream character out of the box. That's wild to me. I don't know what to really make of that. I mean, it's got to be the best, right? Do you think the lack of inherent character is good? I mean, that's kind of my reason for going with vintage synths a lot of the times, like, or what I will say, fans of this channel will know I don't necessarily recommend vintage synths to everybody. I think they're for people who are looking for a certain thing. Modern synths, the thing about them is they need to do so many sounds. They need to be able to do bass. They need to be able to do leads, pads, strings, electric piano sounds. They got to be able to do all of this stuff. And so what they have to do is sort of tune the synth to be kind of neutral, right? Because a synth that's really got like a really fat filter ain't going to be really that good for a lead necessarily, vice versa. And so there is this thing with like modern synths where they can kind of sound a little vanilla, whereas you kick on one of these ancient vintage analog synths and you going to have a character. Like it's going to give you something. Poly 6 is going to give you a little flavor. It ain't going to do everything though. I mean, the Poly 6 is going to do its thing and it's kind of not useful for anything else. So that's kind of the trade-off. You have to have like a bunch of them sometimes. Interesting that the Take 5 to you has more immediate beauty, but of course the Take 5 can't do what the Polybrute 12 can. Do you think it comes down to the oscillators and the filters, or what do you think might lend itself to that? Sometimes presets can do a lot too, I think the Take 5 has some really good effects on it. Does the Polybrute 12 have good effects? I forget what the package is on that. So what I want to do is actually use envelope 1 to control the pulse width mod. This is kind of like how you can simulate a bit of almost like a guitar sound. Deliberately thinning it out using the sustain. So if you think about it, it's like it's not allowing the pulse width to go all the way down. There we get square wave, and I kind of want it to not go all the way there because it's going to be, there's a difference in the thickness in the low end of this slider. Somewhere around there you get that like kind of higher harmonic. It sounds really bright, but that's okay. We're gonna get there. Sound Author, welcome to the stream. How's it going? So then we can blend in the other oscillator, 50/50. And we'll set it to pulse width mod 2. And again, I wish this just snapped there. And you can hear that there is a difference, right? We have, even with the fine tune at 0, there is some... Kazaroval, yeah, it sounds a bit harsh now because we haven't involved a filter yet. So bear with me. I know I'm making a bit of a harsh sound. Blade Runner, you sent your Polybrute 12 back. Pray tell, my friend, what led you to that? One thing is the resonance is cranked. So if I turn that off, immediately we're much more in that, vintage analog territory. But what we really need to do is bring the cutoff down. And we'll put it in 12. So we have like a gentler slope. I could increase the unison. For now, I kind of want to just play with it without getting involved with all of the effects and cool stuff it can do. And then this does something. I wish I remember what it did. Key follow, we'll put it all the way up. Oh, we have a couple of different modes here. So this is interesting. We got a ladder filter, state variable filter. Interesting. OMX, I don't know what that would be, but of course we want to use it on Jupiter 8 mode, right? And so what I want to do here is then increase the envelope mod, of course, and now this is going to give us that shape to the sound. It does have a little bit of a thwang to it. Let's try in 24. You had issues with the keys. What kind of issues? Didn't like the sound for the money and really came to hate the color. That's surprising. I thought the color looked gorgeous on it. But of course I didn't have it. I didn't have that. Aquatic says, I just love the Prophet filter. I also think the oscillators on the take are nice on the Take 5. Yeah. I think they're 3340s, right? So, or something pretty close to that. What's in the Prophet 600 behind me. So, I think it sounds better with the 24. That is, Jupiter 8 could swap between the two, right? I know the Jupiter 6 could do a few different things. So now let's increase the velocity sensitivity to the filter and to the VCA. Maybe not so much to the VCA. And I'm going to bring the envelope mod down a bit. What I'm trying to do is make sure we don't get too much of that. It is pretty harsh because of just the extreme sound of the oscillators before it even hits the resonance. Novel response, welcome to the stream. Have I reviewed the Carbon 8? Is that the modal Carbon 8? I do have a modal synth, but it says modulus on it. That's a little hint, and members of the channel know what I'm talking about. But no, I haven't played with the modal Carbon 8. Yes, I would be interested too, Sound Author, to see how this compares. Yeah, a little. Maybe I should bring the sustain. It's almost like functioning as a bass control now. I think it sounds actually kind of nice there. I don't know what's authentic sounding, Daniel Perkins. Welcome, by the way. For me, this plugin almost sounds like a really good System 8, which might sound like slander, but... Blow, welcome to the stream. How's it going? Yeah, a little mid-rangey. Of course, we could use the EQ here to kind of get that under control. We have the control of the modulation here. So I think we need to bring in a little bit of modulation to the sound. We can use some delay, and we'll bring in LFO mod here. We'll turn the delay off just to... Is that routed to LFO mod to both? Let's route it to both here. Actually kind of is nice. Routed to just one kind of breaks up the sound. Oh, absolutely, Todd. I deliberately have been ignoring the age knob just because I wanted to see how I could get it to go without needing to sort of cheat it with the age knob. Let's increase age to about 25, and like I said earlier, it does change the GUI, which is cute. Let's increase the age to 50 here. That's about where I liked it before. Aquatic, it's not impossible that I could get to Vancouver. I have some friends out there. So it might be something I do, but I don't know. I mean, Canada's huge. It's kind of like saying, hey, if you're ever in America, right, and someone could live in California versus where I live in Florida. Yeah, I'm worried about modal. I'm not novel response. I'm a little worried about them. Yeah. Interesting, Blade Runner. I mean, with any synth that's that expensive, here's the thing. I have the same sort of feeling about the Yamaha CS70M behind me, which is, of course, a very expensive synth. It's just like, it's very hard for any synth to be worth the ultra premium price, in my opinion. They just, if there's a single issue, it doesn't feel worth it, because we've all played a synth that's not that expensive and been like, ooh, this can sound good in this territory, So I feel for any company that's trying to get in there. Let's use a little age and a little LFO and see if we could take it. That's a very nice natural chorusing in there without actually having to turn the chorus on, right? Why am I not hearing anything here? Am I doing something like incredibly stupid? I don't know. We'll get back to there anyways. So we got the attack release. Maybe we can increase the release a bit on both of these. Or says, picked up a Moog Muse instead, way better. That's super interesting, because Aquatic was going to get a Moog Muse and was waiting to get it, and eventually after another delay was like, fuck it, I'm gonna get a Polybrew 12. So yeah, very, very interesting there. Let's see. Aquatic says, you can get any sound much soft synths these days, but there's nothing that plays like the Polybrew 12. Yeah, for sure. We do need to get America would be better. Daniel Perkins asks, are you a JX8P fan? I'm comparing one right now to my MKS70, and I'm enjoying the sound a bit more. Now, I'm super bad at remembering. MKS70, which is that? Is that the rack mount version of the JX10? I want to say that's what it is. Chris Oliveria, Florian's video certainly made it seem like it had some issues, didn't it? Daniel, yeah, it is. The MKS70 is the JX10 in rack. So just off camera there, I haven't announced this yet because I haven't had a chance to get pictures. I got a JX10 hanging out back there. I've got one dead voice on it, so I'm going to get it repaired. Super excited to have a JX10 here. I don't know, because for me, the question has always been between the JX3P and the JX10. Do you go for that like warm analog vintage sound, or do you go for all the features of the JX10? The 12 voices that are bitimbral most of the time, and the velocity and aftertouch. But you've got the IR3505 chip instead of the 3109 from the Jupiter 8. Not that that synthesizer has anything to do with this live stream tonight, by the way. But I've actually been thinking about seeing if I could find someone in my area who has a JX8P that I could borrow, because I'd really love to do a comparison between the three JXs, because I don't think anybody's done like a hard comparison between the three. And, when I was buying my JX3P, I was like really lost as to know which of the three I wanted to get. So in the future, I definitely kind of want to check that out. Seems like everybody likes the Take 5. Does anybody have a TO5? Very interested about that one too. I think that might be the recommendation this year for a lot. So we got a pretty good sound here. Love any sound that sounds like a cat. Newman was a fan of the Jax 8Ps and Jax 10. So was Richard Wright. I want to say his name is. I don't know. I'm blanking out from Pink Floyd. They used Jax 10s for the Wall tour. S Chance, welcome to the stream. One thing VSTIs will never give you that makes all the difference: randomness and unreliability that makes such a difference. S Chance, I just don't agree with that. Welcome to the channel. I hope you'll hang around. If you put the age up to 100% here, this thing gets unusably random. Actually, kind of usably random. That's quite beautiful. MZ string territory, but to be honest with you, get it so it's not quite as ear piercing. That's in the ballpark. Let's check out some of these effects. So we got saturator. Okay, thank God we got this on. Okay, so let's turn them off and just the saturator. There we go. What do we have? We got a few different modes. Channel 47. Wow, you can take things pretty brutal. Mesa. I don't know. I don't know if that's again. No, PC's not tapping out. Just a weird sort of sound. Big muff. Yes, I don't know about this stuff. Cult Vol. Oh, Culture Vulture. That's what it is. I thought. Obviously, it's not for me, right? I had a moment of thinking of extreme narcissism, thinking they put a distortion mode in for me. Brian Sandstrom, welcome. The Mililog XD is one of my favorite synths to recommend. Really not a synth that sounds like everything else. You know, it does have that character that I like. I like when a synth has character, but I understand that they can't all have character. So actually the default mode sounds pretty good to my ears, and if you dial it back, with it off, on, crank it a little further, kind of gives it a little bit more of that vintage sound a bit, you know, because like this, it does sound clean. It's like serum level clean. Saturator on. Giving it some dirt. Maybe, I don't know, it's tough to get that balance. I don't know that I love the saturator, but what I will say is comparing it to like Rhodes, it at least seems like they're doing something cool with it. Tone we can leave off. Let's check out the chorus. That's really going to be important here. Love that there's noise and bias in there. Sounds like a real chorus, right? Oh, these are just basically Juno choruses. Loses its stereo-ness with type 1 and 2 on. Interesting. So yeah, we're starting to get really vintagey sounding, which is good. Let's turn on the delay. Now this is interesting because we have all of these different types of delays here. And we've got an echo rec, the bin echo rec, 4053. That might be, we got like all of these different ones. R 2010 tape echo, it's maybe the RE501. Again, maybe. Let's see. Mix on. Could be it. If we increase the time, slow it down. Now, what's interesting about this is I don't really see like a... Oh, I guess... Oh, you can hear it click. So it's sort of giving away what's going on, that you're getting different rates based off the time here. But you know what's really wonky about that is, again, kind of my gripe about these knobs that don't just click into place. Why not put, 16th, quarter, eighth, all of that right there? Because like, kind of... Definitely sounds good with it. All right, let's turn the delay off for a second. We could also ping pong that. Sorry, let's turn it back on. And I'm going to turn the delay off. We've got a really cool reverb too. And again, we had all of these different ones here. And we also have light modes, which is kind of nice. So if you don't really want the full version here, let's go for large. Oh, we got cheap verb. Let's see how cheap this synth can sound. All the way on. It does sound cheap. Deep double bass. I'm going to kill the release here. Let's try distant. Pretty clear delays in there. Not really a cloud. More you can hear that. Even with the size all the way up, EDM riff doesn't seem big enough, does it? Am I crazy? And it doesn't sound that bright either. And we have an additional dark mode. Right? Like, doesn't that seem like it should be... Okay, let's go large. What do you guys think? Am I crazy for not loving this reverb? It's like, okay. Mysterious Cave. This one's nice because it's brighter. Plucked Cavern. Pretty dark. I wonder if it's a convolution reverb. Useful. These reverbs are very dark, which is surprising to me because it, you know, for something that feels so like serum adjacent, something that you could do modern EDM with, not necessarily just music that's locked in a generation ago. Mysterious Cave is definitely my favorite, but there's a lot of low-end content in there I wish I could filter out with like a high-pass filter, which I don't see any way to do. And this is like the brightest of the reverbs. And if I turn, I mean, why do we even need a dark mode? And this is interestingly so the opposite of my usual read on a plugin, because if you've watched this channel a lot, you'll know that I often bitch about reverbs in Synthesizer sounding too good. And by too good, I often mean really smooth tails that are very clean and very bright, because reverbs have gotten so good nowadays, right? And I kind of like a little bit of a gritty vintage digital sound. This sounds very dark, and I was actually having some issues with it in my demo at the beginning of the live stream. This is, I would almost always use it on Mysterious Cave, because even this is not bright. What I will say is it handles the high end well, but I just still feel like you can hear the discrete delays in there. It's fine. It's good. I wonder if it's some sort of convolution-y type thing, because it does feel like if you're familiar with convolution reverbs, they can get really dark sounding because, you know, there's just not necessarily all that info in a real space up in that 5,000 and up range, you know, and, you know, digital reverbs of the 70s and 80s did not worry about that. They loved the high end. So, for me, the reverb is a little too lo-fi, and you know that wouldn't be a problem if the rest of the plugin felt that way, but it does feel more than anything like kind of out of place here compared to everything else on the plugin. Like it doesn't lend itself to the rest of the sound, in my opinion. It's not to say that it's bad necessarily. We could increase some pre-delay here. But I just do feel like you hear the sound of it, and I think it's kind of given away by the fact that even if I put the mix at like 50 on both of these and increase the release back up, you know. Listen to how dark that sounds versus if I just have the plug-in. Way more air coming through. Once I've loaded that in, like, I want to emphasize here, this is the brightest reverb, right? Like, this isn't me like, I would be fine if I was thinking to myself, ooh, you know what? DJ Brownout is here, and he's going to be making a real dark reverb synth pad. That's what he's going to do, and it's going to be fucking deep. That's okay. Like if I had turned the high pass or the low pass filter really low, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just get dark with it. Let's turn dark off, sorry. I mean, maybe that's part of why you want the VCF to have a little more envelope mod. Still a little ice picky. Yeah, you like a dark synth with a bright verb. Yeah, it's definitely. We'll go low synth sonic. Sounds quite nice and apocalyptic, right? Definitely. Interesting how it like just that little tweak synth sonic took it really into a good territory, but I just don't want to not be able to play. I guess with the dark mode off, the Mysterious Cave is usable, but there is something about it that's not. I mean, that's size 100% too. Like, we're just, and that's another problem, like convolution reverb versus an algorithm reverb. You're going to hear that difference in length. You could take the same, like if you've ever made an impulse, you'll see that usually you'll lose that information a lot quicker than you do with the actual hardware. It's just because it's a bunch of math still rotating around in the hardware, whereas on a convolution thing, you're getting this snapshot. And, you know, so and I'm not saying it is a convolution reverb. I'm saying it just sounds like one. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, you know, since becoming into this household. So we've got a sound. I guess we just turn all the effects off real quick. And to me, this sound does have that sort of Jupiter 8 sort of thing. I said it again. It reminds me of what a Jupiter 8 might sound like. Not saying this plugin is any way inspired by a Jupiter 8. Very nice sort of sound to it. Let's go ahead and increase the spread here. So this is doing exactly what you think it is, right? And you can control the number of voices here. And let's see. Oh yeah, there was no doubt in my mind. The presets on this are not as great as maybe like the GeForce ones. And we can take that down to 2 so it's not quite as large, right? Oh, so now we have polyphony control. I thought this was the number of voices. And then we control the detune. And this is, again, like similar to the age knob. I almost wish you could take it a little further. Sub oscillator. I'm going to go up and let's turn it on and see what we get. So all the way up, you can hear that low end. Turn that to a square wave. I don't know if we really need the sub on this sound. Okay, so here's the sound, no sub. Maybe we do. Okay, let's turn the effects back on and just the saturator. We control the tone. Let's bring out some like 4. Interesting, it kind of doesn't let you go past a certain range. Kind of like a nice hollow sort of sound to it. Chorus on. Don't need it. Delay. Kind of nice. Reverb. Let's go ahead and just turn the sub back off. I don't know if we need it really. I like... The more I listen to the resonance, it does get a little ice picky. You edit with a find and replace. Replace the J that begins with some else moniker. I don't know what that means. There's just so much low end you get from the reverb. Let's try sync 1 to 4. I don't know what that does. Size. Okay, that's just controlling the size of the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? I think this is probably a good place to call it for the evening. What do you think about Thing-8? I'm kind of mixed on it. It's not obvious to me that it's the best it could possibly be. Mixmaster, welcome to the stream. At its price point, let me add it that way, right? $125-ish at launch is steep. And what I have to say is there's no doubt in my mind that the DSP going into it is like next gen. When it comes to the cleanliness, like the precision and the smoothness of the filter. I get it. Like the moment you hear this plugin, you're like, it's wow on that front. The clarity and everything sounds great. DSP utilization. I mean, I guess people are going to just keep buying computers, and they're going to get better and better. So just like video games nowadays seem to be released in a state where they don't run on the current hardware well, but like they're going to be very future proofed. That's kind of how I feel about this. But considering its price will also go up in the future, $125 during the sale. And then there's like GeForce that puts out some really beautiful sounding stuff, better presets, better reverb, better and a little more authentic sounding. So I do think this plugin is for somebody, for sure. Let's see here. Let's see what everybody's saying. Jim says not a fan. Mike says meh, 100%. Aquatic says I like the sound of this plugin, but I missed part of the stream. Mixmaster says Synthmaster 3 for $59. Synthmate says price aside, I'd rather have a Jupiter X for the tactile feedback. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, Synthmate, there's so many. For the same money you could get a Jupiter X, you could get a Moog Muse, right? Like a real analog synth. And the Jupiter X isn't even Roland's best emulation of the Jupiter 8. Like the System 8's going to have a more authentic. Aquatic says it's 125. I see it for 179 euros. Yes, there is a. If you apply the discount code, the Black Friday sale is extended. And if you discount it and then you do the math, the conversion from euro there. Hypothesis 13 says it's not too bad, but there are other Jupiter 8 options out there that sound better. Yeah, to me, I don't know that it sounds exactly like a Jupiter 8. It kind of has its own flavor, which I actually do like. But yeah, it's interesting. Let's see. Let's see here. Todd says, I like it for the opening price. No regrets here. Yeah. Aquatic says, get a System 8. Yeah, I think so. Harmonic Sonics, welcome to the stream. System 8's probably your best bet if you want a digital recreation of a Jupiter 8. If you want an analog synth, a modern analog synth that's going to be like a Jupiter 8, there's a lot of great options for you out there. Christian says, for me, is the other extreme is too much of everything, too much quality and care, but at the same time, too much price and CPU usage. Yeah, I have to say, I don't go to Jupiter 8 plugins that often. I tend to want to go towards something a little more flavorful, because like a Jupiter 8 plugin can sound awfully like a generic virtual analog synth, right? Because the Jupiter 8 is in so many ways the sort of the template. Of course, the CS80 is the other legendary analog polysynth, Prophet 5, but it's really like the Prophet 5 and Jupiter 8 that set up the standard for what we think of as, you know, the typical synth layout. So Synthmade says they have a System 8, but they lust after the Jupiter X for the versatility. I suppose you do get a lot more out of Jupiter X in terms of, you know, you could do D50 sounds with it and stuff like that. So there is that, if that's what you're looking for. Kind of like an all-in-one. Yeah, Tal, to date, Tal has made the only plugin that I've done a comparison with a vintage synth and been like, I can sell my Alpha Juno because Tal Fa sounds identical. Like, it's missing nothing in terms of sonics to my ears, to where the plugin, it is an Alpha Juno, and not just in like a blind test. I mean, like, knowing I'm using the plugin, I'm like, it sounds, it's there. Doing the comparison, that's a fun stream to go back and watch. It's identical. And you know, with this, I have a feeling I wouldn't necessarily want to sell a Jupiter 8 if I had one for it. Yeah, Tal's just great. And I love what Acustica Audio is doing, but I do sort of question the idea of doing another Jupiter 8 plugin. I said it again, it's not like this plugin's based on the Jupiter 8, guys. It's just based on synthesizers. I think that considering what they're going for, it's been done to death, and there's going to be, for said another way, if you're not getting the discount, right, and it's like $179 or so, you're not that far off of buying Arturia V Collection and getting their entire suite. You know, I mean, you're way off, but like, what is it, double that ish for the holiday sale, right? Well, Mixmaster, I am maybe not the king. That would probably be Starsky Carr does the best comparisons, but I do a lot of vintage synth versus the plug-in versus the reissue type stuff, because I have a bunch of vintage synths. All of my synths are vintage. I don't own any modern synths. And that's just not out of vintage synth snobbery, but I just love that they do have character. But kind of to the earlier discussion, you know, not everybody wants to have 25 synthesizers. I think most sane people want to have like 5 or less. That's probably where you should be, like one great digital wavetable one great analog poly, maybe a mono synth, and actually 3 sounds really good. So with that in mind, I don't recommend most people to take my path of buying vintage synths, but it does allow me to speak to, because my pet peeve is that so many plugin companies put out something that looks visually like a piece of vintage hardware, and then you get all of these fucking influencers on YouTube and TikTok and shit saying, oh my god, they've released the Jupiter, they've released insert vintage synthesizer here as a plugin, and it sounds amazing. And they don't a lot of the times, or at least they don't really sound that close. And that type of thing really upsets me, because they're sort of preying upon people's ignorance, and they're not, and it depends. It's really hard to get a filter to sound identical in the box to an analog filter. That I will give a little bit of leeway to. But when synth manufacturers, when it's either in the box or when certain companies clone other synths and they get very obvious details wrong, and the like envelopes don't behave the same and things like that, or the signal flow's not the same, it kind of is a giveaway. Hey, this company doesn't really care about getting those details right. They just want to put the name that will make people nostalgic and want to get it on the box and then sell it to you, even if it's not really got the love put into it that a lot of the vintage synths had. I'll get off of my soapbox. AK says, I tried it yesterday, and this is one of the most, if not the most, analog sounding plugins. And the augmented effects sound really good. This is on another level. AK, I mean, I'm welcome. I'm happy you're here. Phenomenal to have you here. It's not my opinion that Thing-8 is the most analog sounding plugin at all. Like, you know, GeForce does a better job of taking it into that analog character. And to be honest, you know, Cherry Audio recently, I would say P10, which I reviewed, was that last week on this channel? Probably a little more analog sounding. And both Cherry Audio and GeForce, I think, have a little bit more usable effects. Now, what I will say is Thing-8 sounds really clean, like really modern, very professional, like you could use it in EDM for sure. But analog sounding plugin, I'm not trying to pick on you in particular, AK, but I'm responding to that comment, and I don't know that I think it is on another level. There's some shit they're doing with DSP that sounds amazing, but I have to say it's not giving me vintage. Sound Author says, I don't even want to think about the cost of maintenance and repairs to an actual Jupiter 8. Last week, one sold on eBay for $14,600. So interesting, you know, compared to what they list for. Japio Joe just bought a Jupiter X on Black Friday for €2,000. Also, the Update 3 is great. Moog Muse is $3,500. Don't understand why a Jupiter X is $2,900 in the USA. That is crazy. I agree with that. Well, let me know what you think. You know, come back on this channel and give me some updates on what you think. I don't know. What do you guys... I think AK's comment, and again, I'm really sorry. I don't mean to be picking on you. But what would you guys say is the most analog sounding plugin? I'd just be curious what you guys in the chat think, because I think that's at kind of the heart of when we're discussing plugins that look an awful lot like a vintage analog synth. I think that's what people want. I don't think people necessarily care if it sounds identical, right? That's kind of tough. But I think feel analog and sound analog. So what would everybody say is their most analog sounding plugin? Synthmade says Starsky is very good, but his voice isn't as sexy as yours. Shout outs to Synthmade. I love Starsky's video, and I think he has a very sexy, husky, I love a British voice. Aquatic says, you're going to look at any wavetable synths? Well, of course, if I could ever get my hand on a microwave, that would be up there. PPG waves are just so expensive, and of course with the Behringer one coming out, it would be fun. But you know, I'm not the biggest you know, I like wavetables like a la the K3, the DW8000, SQ80, those types of wavetable synths. I think when they get too close to Native Instruments Massive, I mean, I don't know about you, Aquatic, like you were listening to good music like Boards of Canada when Massive came out. I was listening to shitty music in EDM clubs because that's what I did for a living. I was a professional DJ, and when Massive came out, Native Instruments Wavetable Synth, it changed music, right? I mean, it basically invented dubstep, and it was just this world of assign the LFO to the wavetable position, and that's the whole sound. And everybody thought they were a sound designer, and music got really bad for like 5 years. So obviously, there are so many really cool wavetable synths like Summit and Hydra-Synth, right? I think those two would be at the top of my list for something. And then you've got the third wave, right? Which is going to be kind of that more PPG style thing, and the Behringer clone. So those are all cool. And I bet Summit's fucking awesome, and I bet Hydra-Synth is fucking awesome. So all of that being said, I don't necessarily, what I'm looking for out of synth sounds nowadays, to close this rant down, is often not in that wavetable-y domain. I can do it in software. I mean, because I have a shitload of software as well, I just tend to think like, oh, if I'm going to do that, I'll just load it. So yeah, I definitely would love a Hydra-Synth Deluxe mic. Monopoly does wavetables, ModWave. Yeah. Mixmaster's got 2 Behringer waves pre-ordered. Why 2? I'm curious. Let's see. Kieran Moore says, Synthfluencers wouldn't use hype to prey on people's ignorance. Whatever do you mean? Oh my God. Kristen says, I heard a review of Arturia Mini Freak praising that the filter is the same in the VST and the digital edition. That's fascinating. I mean, Arturia does do good. I mean, that's so backwards, but yeah. AK says, yes, I completely agree with GeForce. And again, I'm really sorry. I wasn't trying to pick on you, but you said a thing that I think was interesting to talk about. That's what really happened there. It's not that I want to invalidate your perspective, because if you get those warm, glowy, nostalgic tones off this plugin, fuck yeah. I mean, it's a great plugin. I'm not denying that. Jim says, best way to get the scoop on synths is to watch people like Alex. I appreciate it, Jim. Mixmaster says, most reviewers ask, does it sound like X? Then say, I don't know. I don't have an X synth to compare it to. Yeah, and of course, I mean, if I had a Jupiter 8, this live stream would have been, does Thing-8 sound like another synthesizer that may have come out that had no relation to Thing-8 from 1981? I would love to check out the Legend HC. I should send them an email to check it out. Cherry Audio makes a strong enough argument for analog enough budget plugins. Yeah, I agree with that, Sound Author. I've kind of come around with Cherry Audio. I was a little bit like, there was some part of me that was, and I think you guys were too, like when we did the Cherry Audio versus GeForce SEM stream. Cherry Audio is completely free at the time, and I think it is again. And then the Oberheim, the GeForce Oberheim version was $50, right? For a mono VST. And the differences were not huge. And I was saying the whole stream, I was pointing out the differences, but I kind of was starting to realize, like, I don't really think it's a bad thing. Like, they're not noticeable enough to make me feel like I need to chip out $50 for this, right? The Cherry Audio one's good enough. But the chat was like 80% of people were like, nope, save up and spend the money on the GeForce. So for a while, I was kind of like, yeah, I think GeForce is where it's at. Atomica really changed my mind. Atomica is an amazing plugin. I really like the OB1 plugin from GeForce. And I would say OB1 versus Atomica would be my choice for analog sounding plugins. UHE Diva is a very good one. So the Korg plugins are underrated. Diva's great. Let's see here. Chris Oliveria, I'm never in the vicinity of an analog synth. OBE, yeah, that's a very good one. Let's see. ModWave. Hydra-Synth is awesome for sure. Love my ModWave. Todd, I'd be curious to know, is there anything in multi-poly that makes you think about either getting a multi-poly, or do you feel like it's covered in ModWave? Because those two are the most similar. And I don't even count the King Korg Neo, because that was kind of weird. Let me catch up with the chat here for a bit. Yeah, a lot of people have been talking about the Aquatic's been championing the Korg 2600 plugin. Yeah. Sound Author says, to be frank, an actual Jupiter 8 is older than God, so it might not have sounded too great out of the box. I've heard Jupiter 8s before, and they do sound good. Like, I've been in the vicinity of a few before. No, I mean, do I think they sound $20,000 good? No. But I wouldn't say they don't. I think they probably sound pretty good. Novel says, I think this plugin sounded like the engine is great and powerful, and the aging algorithm helps with vintage authenticity. But you're right, not all the reverbs all sounded like... You're right, that all the reverb sounded like the cheapest reverb, yeah. Aquatic says, Atomica is one of the best plugins of the year. And yeah, that's the thing about that one. People talk about Mercury 6 a lot. I need to check that out. But I kind of would want to check it out with a Jupiter 6, which is now the question. I don't know if this is what you're saying, Mixmaster, but I do highly recommend, this is just my personal soapbox, but we're at the end of the stream, so I feel like it's okay if I sound off. I recommend everybody don't go into debt buying synths. My rule is I'll save the cost of a synth, and then if I've been able to save it, then I'll allow myself to buy it if I have the cash. So that was confusing how I said that. But basically, if a synth costs $2,000, to use a nice round number, I make $4,000, save $2,000, and then I can buy the synth, right? That way, I'm not losing my fucking mind, because I feel like that gear acquisition syndrome strikes all of us. I certainly have it, right? But it's good to like slow it down, and there's nothing wrong with waiting a bit to get a synth. I understand Black Friday is a thing, but you know, it's past. So now it's time to be a little bit cautious. Kieran says, good call on the Polybrute 12. Has this grainy lo-fi thing I couldn't love. I keep vacillating on the Muse. Do you love it? Interesting. And interesting that you love the Muse, but not the Polybrute 12 at all. Because for me, like, I don't always gel with ladder filters. Although I do have a ladder filter synth, a ladder filter hybrid wavetable poly synth that I haven't shown on this channel yet. Yeah, it's just good if you're not spending money you don't have in life. Yeah. Yeah. Todd says, for me, Thing-8 worked better with my own effects. Big Sky or Black Hole, Immerse. Yeah, I mean, that's the way I would use it too. Yeah, and there's nothing, I mean, I have like kind of an incentive as a synthfluencer, hate the word, but you know, to have a few synths, because it's kind of nice to have a collection of the synths that often get used in plugins and stuff, so I can compare them. And then I have a few weird synths that you don't see that often. I have a few synths that I personally think sound great, like the Proteus MPS, right? I think it's one of my favorite sounding keyboards ever, but almost no one gives a fuck about those. So it's like, I've got some of my vintage synths are very cheap, like the Kwai K4 is incredible. And then I have a few expensive ones, you know, and it's kind of what it is. I try to have like a well-rounded thing, and I do have a rule about not having synths that I don't have up on the wall. So there's about 25 on both of the walls, and they're all plugged in. You can turn them all on. Well, actually right now, not all of them are plugged in, but like the idea is I've got the cables and everything, so I can turn them all on. I've got 32 ins to the DAW, so I could at any moment just Vangelis out and play all of them at once. And if I can't do that, then I'm collecting and I'm hoarding, and I would rather someone else get the joy of experiencing that instrument, if that makes sense. So, Edwin, have a good night. I'm going to call it 2. I think this is a good place to fuck it out for the night. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this scum family. I hope I didn't go too hard on this plugin. It is my nature to be critical, which I think is what people appreciate, is the honesty of me being able to, you know, even on something I love, like on the legendary synth streams, we're often covering synths that I love, but I'm still pretty critical because I think it's important to not let the romance of the thing sweep away your judgment. Let's see here. DeCarmick says, do you consider Thing-8 as an Arturia killer? No. I'll just answer that with one word. Let's see. I need a cape. That is true, Mike. I need a cape. I appreciate all of you guys so much. You guys are phenomenal. Thank you for being part of this incredible synthesizer community. Continue to be excellent, guys, and I will see you next week.